Hi team, this is Scott coming to you with another video. This week what we're going to do is we're actually going to build a new bumper from Move Bumpers DIY company that is specifically for off-road trucks, Jeeps, SUVs and whatnot. Real heavy duty stuff. I'll show you my original bumper, what we're going to do, and then I'll show you what we actually have. Alright team, so this is my truck. 2004 Chevy Silverado 2500, has a 4-inch Rancho lift on it, and what we're working on today is going to be rebuilding this bumper. A couple months ago got rear-ended, and you can see that there is some damage to the actual bumper itself. Once we get the original bumper off, then we're going to go ahead and mock up the new bumper from Move Bumpers. It's going to have the step in the sides, and it's going to mount perfectly. I'm going to add a few other things to it to kind of make it more personalized for my needs. Actually filming, I went ahead and took the bumper out of all the packaging and kind of laid it out so that we can see what kind of parts we have, make sure that everything's good to go, so we don't have to call them back and see if they can send us more stuff. So some of the main features that they have on these bumpers is excessively thick actual metal. Every single corner has been notched, so it makes it easier to do tacks in the corner. I chose the one with the inset steps, so this will actually mount on the side, and then the step will go inside of this for your foot. You're going to use some kind of a grinder. A lot of people use the standard kind of carbide style disc. I love the like sandpaper flat discs. This particular one is an 80 grit, but when you do a project, make sure you have tons of those. What I also love using on projects is the portable bandsaw. This one's from Bauer. It's pretty much identical to the Milwaukee bandsaw. Takes the Milwaukee blade, does everything else. Actually has a bigger throat. You're going to want to use for welding up your bumper is a welder. This one in particular is Lincoln Electric. It's a 180 HD weld pack. Has capabilities of both the MIG and the flux core. At this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get the truck over near the actual door so that I can get the tools out, get the rear bumper off, and then start tacking in the actual bumper itself, the side pieces, the middle pieces, and start trying to rearrange it so that I can get the best fitment for my truck. With the actual instructions, you want to make sure that you take your bumper off first, and then put the main plates on, and then put the bumper on and tack it into place so that you can align it perfectly with the body line. Later on, I'm going to go ahead and show you that, but for now, what I'll do, get the bumper off and go from there. All right, team, so after a little bit of work, we went ahead and got our entire bumper completely removed. What you're going to see underneath the Silverado is that down in here is where you're going to actually mount your bracket that slides the bumper in and out of the truck. So you will have to do a little bit of work to get these off, but you're going to need the hardware. After a little bit of measuring and a little bit of mock setup on the actual frame rail, this is that bracket that we were talking about, how this is going to mount actually onto your actual frame rail. So look down here, and there's on the frame there's actually a pin that's riveted into the frame rail. So if you want this to be an actual removable bumper, what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to make cuts right here and here, and you're gonna have to cut this piece off because there's another bracket that comes in, a cross member that lines up right along this edge, and what it's going to do is it's not going to allow you to move the actual bracket and bumper all the way in so that all the holes are going to line up. So you do have to make a little bit of modifications, but in the big picture, that's actually a really small modification. All right, team, so this is where that's going to be mounting. It's right up into that hole. And see how those holes line up perfectly now? Everything is nice and snug right up to the frame. So, like I said, make that cut, make it beautiful, cut it nice and straight, and you'll have good success. So really at this point, after starting off with the actual mounts for your frame, having the cuts, I will go ahead and clean these up. I'll do that off camera. Next real big project is starting to weld up your bumper. So make sure that you clean all the edges down, make sure that you get everything real nice and tight, and then do your good tacks. One big thing that I'm going to use a lot of magnets to make sure that everything is nice and lined up. So when you start welding this up, what you're going to do is you're going to take the first centerpiece up and you're going to take the wings. So the next big part on the left and the next big part on the right, I believe they're called W1, and you are actually going to line it up and weld it, and then you're going to attach the outsides and then start kind of working your way back in. So take your time on this. And so at this point I went ahead and tacked everything kind of in place, some good tacks all the way along, up at the top, did the same thing. And I did to both sides. So it's all nice and straight, has some good depth into it. And the next part that you're really going to want to do now is there's a couple other pieces. One of the other pieces is going to look similar to this. It's going to have a little bit of a wing. And what you have to do is figure out which side is what. And I found that this side goes in pretty much just like that. So kind of the next thing that we need to work on is filling up this gap right here. So they've included this plate, and what this plate does is it goes on the inside just right like that. So what you'll need to do is you'll need to kind of hold it into place, tack it, and then do the other side, tack it, and then move on from there. So what I went ahead and did, I didn't film it, but it was an all hands on deck, trying to get that bumper actually in place, being able to weld it so that I can, position it. So what I did is I actually put the frame rails on first, as you can see in there. See how those are attached to the frame rail? Mounted both those up with the bolts that were provided, and then set the actual bumper on it, and then went ahead and tacked it at the bottom just so it would hold it. So from this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put another couple tacks on it. I'm going to just pull it actually off of the truck, get it in, and then add a few more things, and then start welding it all up. The thing I am going to do is I'm going to add a full-on tire carrier to this rear bumper. So what it's going to do is it's actually going to have a piece that goes all the way across, and then I'll have basically the ability to put a tire carrier or tire on it, different little things for first aid, or a jack and what. So I went ahead and tacked them all in. You can see that this is the actual step itself, that you do have to do a little bit of modifying to it. I specifically did because mine was hitting right on the spindle. So all right, I've gone ahead and completed all the welding. As you can see, is welding all the way through every single side, everything. So you do want to make sure that when you are welding that you aren't necessarily focusing on trying to get the most beautiful weld. You can get the most beautiful weld, but make sure you have great penetration all the way through that metal. That's where it's really truly going to stick. So I'll weld it up, let it cool down so it's in that point. Then get it outside, get it into your grinding area, and start taking down all of the welds. So if you actually look at all the welds you're going to have to be. So one of the main things that I didn't show is the actual coating process of the bumper. Each person is going to want to do their own. What I ended up opting to is doing a full primer coat on inside and out, and then went with a kind of a matte black. I'm going to be doing a lot of four-wheeling with it, so I just want something that's a little bit dull and to match my actual front bumper. So you can still see that there is definitely some gloss to it. It's not completely flat, but it is a matte, so it should take the shine out. So at this point, all you're going to do now is just take the bumper out, mount it on the back of your truck, add some lights to it, and your license plate, and you should be good to go.